21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
For the last few years, I've really been interested in this question: how can we get children, teenagers, into the digital world and change them from consumers, from just watching YouTube videos, to a mode of creation? Where in the digital world, they see a video or an animation or a song and they're like, oh, I can also create something in the digital world. That is really what's most fascinating to me, that it's sort of sad that all kids, or so many kids around the world, have this magical device that could be used for all sorts of imagination, but then they just use it for consumption. And that's like, this is what I want to change at the highest level of my goal. My name is Felienne Hermans. I'm a professor of computer science education at VU Amsterdam, which is a university in the Netherlands. And this is where I research how to teach programming, this digital creation, to children. And as part of my research at the university, I've created a platform called Hedy, which you can find at hedy.org, where kids can learn programming, and this is free and open source. About 10 years ago, when I was also already a professor at the university, I was feeling sort of unhappy about my job, but I didn't really know why, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I started to teach in a high school, which, where I am from, starts at age 12. So I started to teach programming to 12-year-olds because I thought, well, I want them to be creators, so I'll just start with one classroom. And this was going well because I was having fun and I saw the value. But also I was struggling because it was really, really hard to teach 12-year-olds with the tools that currently existed. Because it was either toys, like programming languages that look like stuff for elementary school kids. And if you're 12, then you want to be, a big boy or girl. So either the tools were looking inauthentic, or they were professional tools, but then they were too hard because they were made for 16, 17-year-olds or even for adults. So there was this space where I thought they're too old for kid stuff, but too young for adult stuff. This is where the struggle is. And this is where I struggled for a few years because I saw the problem, but I didn't yet see the solution. To share a little bit more about my background, I'm actually a computer scientist. I have a PhD in software engineering, and also when I was in grad school, I did a lot of programming into building tools for professional programmers. So after struggling a while, I thought, well, wait a minute, I have a background in building things. Maybe this is a space where I shouldn't become a better teacher, but there should just exist a better tool. So this is when I started about 5 years ago to develop the tool that's now Hedy, because I thought this age group needs their own type of programming tool. So I developed a prototype, and that took off after a while. One of the ways in which I saw that there was a struggle among my learners is that in programming, if you learn programming, there's not so much practice going on. People sort of assume that if you want to learn programming, then you're a bit of a computer nerd, so you will go for it. You will keep grinding until you learn. But then this isn't true for all kids. And then I started to look at other ways of learning, like imagine language learning, for example. We know that before kids really know one word, they have to see it in different contexts. And they have to practice words over and over and over again until they have a good vocabulary. And the same is true for grammar and spelling. You need so much practice. And we think it's very reasonable that we explain one word several times. Like you have to remind kids, no, this is an A and not an E. And I took that lens then back to programming. I thought, well, apparently, if kids want to learn something, not this small subset of self-driven kids, but all kids, then we need to have more practice, more deliberate practice, practicing and showing concepts in different contexts. So a lot of what we're doing in the platform is really based upon lessons we know from language learning, natural language learning that is, for decades, that everyone accepts as the best way to learn, a lot of practice. And we're trying to bring that to programming, where that practice and showing stuff in different ways isn't so common, because it was so many kids that were self-driven. Like when I was a teenager, I was also like that we've never really thought of how to teach this best, because the kids were basically teaching themselves in the 80s and 90s. A lot of people ask me nowadays, of course, well, why are you still teaching children programming? Because the LLMs are here, right? AI can do programming. And I really thought about that a lot. And I think there's two important reasons why I'm still excited about teaching kids programming. One reason is that maybe it's even more important for kids to understand that the digital world is something that is created by people. Also, LLMs are created by people. So giving them this ownership and this sense of the digital world is mine to contribute to, that is important, because AI creates this laziness, I think. This, oh, everything is already there. Why should I still learn something? So even more important is it to encourage this creativity. And the other reason really has to do with that laziness, that it's so tempting, if everything is already on the internet, to think, oh, I'm not going to read this complicated book. I'll just read the summary. And I don't even have to search for the summary because it can be generated for me. But that will, I think, turn your brain into mashed potato, because thinking is something that you need to practice, much like muscles in the gym. If you don't use them, then they will go soft and weak. And also, even more so, like asking for a summary. A summary is such a personal thing. If you and me read the same book and we both write what is the most important thing, we will write different things. So the activity of reading and then selecting, what is the part close to my heart? What did I think? What was I struggling with? And this is something I really worry about a bit, that if I see my students in class struggle, well, when I was a student and everything was on paper, I didn't understand the page. I would read it again and again and again. And then maybe I would ask a classmate, and then I might ask the professor. But this struggle, of course, wasn't wasted time. This is not an activity to be made more efficient, because that struggle was training for my brain. And now it is so tempting for students, if they don't understand the paragraph, to say, well, I will just ask GPT. And there will be, I think, so much lost. Of course, yes, you can gain some efficiency, and maybe sometimes it's worth it, but at what cost? That no one wants to do the deep work of thinking, that no one wants to sharpen their brain on the stone of hard reading. I am a bit sad about that. And this is why I think it's so important that kids keep learning programming, other languages. Yes, translation LLMs exist, but learning a different language, it's such a great activity for your brain. It literally keeps you young. Why would you want to automate that? Parents that are maybe also interested in getting their children away from the computer as a consumption and towards this creation vibe can also use Hedy. So our system has teacher's account that are also free. And then you can create your own classroom and your child then can participate in the classroom. You can add your own exercises and you can modify the lesson plan. And even though that is called a teacher account, you don't have to be a teacher. You can also apply as a parent and then guide what your kid is doing, give them exercises that are specific to them. Like you can make a drawing. Oh, make a drawing of our house, for example, or play my favorite song. So even if you're a parent or homeschooling parent, you can still very much use our platform in the teacher mode. We are speaking English now, but maybe you hear that English is not my first language. Apology for my pronunciation. I'm Dutch. And when I started to create Hedy, I created the platform in a multilingual way because I speak Dutch with my students in class. And this was one of the defining features I only realized later of our platform. Because we supported 2 languages, then people started to add different languages, like we got Spanish and French and German. And I thought, interesting, because German and Spanish, for example, are further away from English than Dutch. So I thought, yes, of course, it makes much sense to do programming in a non-English language, even though when I learned programming, I learned it in English. So fast forward a few years, we now support 57 different languages, including Hindi, Chinese, Arabic, Spanish, so many of the big languages. If you are then teaching as a parent or as a teacher, a child that doesn't know English or doesn't know English yet, just know that our platform is also available in all these different languages. All of the lesson materials, also the quizzes and the teacher backend, they've all been translated in those languages. And if there's a language that you speak that's missing, you can also add your own language and contribute to the success of the platform that way. So I mentioned I started to work in a school a few years ago, and I still work in a school. 1 day a week I work in a high school in addition to my job as a professor. And sometimes this is really, it does interesting things to your brain to live in these sort of 2 worlds. Like being a university professor gives you prestige in society, whereas working in the school gives me more value as a person, right? I'm not too afraid to admit this, that working in the school is so valuable because you immediately see the results of your work. You see kids that come in without knowledge, and then after a while, they know something. But even more so, they come in saying, oh, I don't really like programming. And then after a few weeks, they say, this is not too bad, which is a nice compliment from a 12-year-old. And then after a few weeks, they're like, yes, I love this. But it also creates this conflict in me, right? Why is a university professor job so much more well paid and so much more high prestige? Whereas the societal value and the value to me as a person is so much different in the school. So that has also really made me reflect a bit on society. Like, why is it that jobs that offer so much value, teachers, nurses, all those jobs, why don't we value them? I don't have an answer, but this is really, really something I'm pondering lately, that it almost seems to be in reverse, where things that have value don't get also a high salary, and things that are maybe not so very directly valuable are so much higher prestige. So as I said, I built this system just to teach my children in my classroom, and then it sort of exploded, and now we have about 500,000 users every month on the platform, and it turned from this tiny project into an official non-profit. So officially now we are an entity that hosts the software and trains teachers around the world. And it's been such a journey that something I created for my classroom is now literally used all over the world. Like, we get emails from Pakistan, from Botswana in the south of Africa, from Middle America, where they say, well, we also try to teach with Python in English. We were struggling with those adult tools. And then we switched to your platform, and now we have so much engagement. And then we send sticker packages around the world. And I didn't plan on this. I founded a company when I was in grad school, and I worked in this company for a few years. And I thought, well, the last thing I will ever do is found an entity again, because it's so much work. I don't know if it's for me. And then it just came on my path, and now again I founded something, a different thing, like not a company where we don't aim to make money. But it's been really valuable, because now it's not, I didn't want to found a company. I just want to support this project in the best way, and becoming a nonprofit turned out just to be the best way to organize this project. If you're excited to teach your kids programming, or maybe you're excited for the school where they go to teach programming, you can go to hedy.org/join, where we have resources for teachers and parents. We have resources for programmers that want to help us program. And we have resources for translators that want to extend or add new languages to the platform. And I want to stress again, we are free and open source, so you don't have to pay. You can just start right away.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.